Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the first of a couple of videos I'm going to be starting today. So you're going to be seeing this sweatshirt a lot, but today's video I'm going to be focusing on my self-destructing books list. So I made a list at the end of last year, and this was inspired by Becca from Becca and the Books. I think she's the first person who did this, but the idea is that you make a list of books that if you don't read them by the end of the next year, you have to unhaul them. They clearly aren't going to read them, so just get rid of them. So I decided to make a list like this, and of all the lists I've ever made, it's been the most effective for me personally in getting me to prioritize things or to really reevaluate whether I want to read that book at all. And I'm down now to just 4 books left on the list. So the goal for this video is to finish those last 4 books and either read them or DNF and unhaul them. And we'll see how it goes. I have 2 that I managed to get on my Reindeer Readathon list, so I will be making progress towards the readathon with those, and I have 2 that I was not able to get in the list based on the prompts. Before we dive into those though, I need to change a battery. It is flashing at me. I didn't realize my battery was so low, so I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back with a fresh battery, and my breakfast order is nearly here, so I gotta talk fast. But the 2 books that I managed to get on my Reindeer Readathon, TBR, keep forgetting the phrase TBR for some reason, were This Golden Flame by Emily Victoria and Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. So I think this is, what are the prompts I even use these for? I don't even remember. This Golden Flame I am using for, where did you go on the list? Blitzen. So I had a list of books that all started with T and had the Hive Mind and the Discord choose one for me. And then Pretty Girls I'm using for a book recommended to you on social media or in a list. So those will be progress towards the readathon. The other 2 are The Salt Line by Holly Goddard Jones and A Shadow of Light by Fred Chappell. These ones I couldn't get on that TBR, but I am excited to get to them. I think all 4 of these are ones that could end up being new favorite books for me, so I just really need to prioritize them, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So I'm going to go ahead and start with This Golden Flame, since that one is for the readathon, and I think it's the one of the 4 that I haven't tried to read for. The other ones I will be restarting, having soft DNF'd them previously for various reasons, none of which were that I wasn't enjoying the book. It's just other things coming up. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this one, since it's the one I haven't tried before, and I think it'll be a fun one to read. I have kind of today to chill and read for a while. It's Sunday, December 1st, and the readathon's just kicked off, so I want to go ahead and make some progress for the readathon, and this is going to be the way I can do kind of the quickest early progress and get myself some momentum going into the rest of the month. I'm back sooner than I thought I would be with an update, because I'm actually going to DNF This Golden Flame. I've been reading for about 30 minutes, and I've gotten to page 60, and I'm just not caring about what's happening here. So this one is a YA fantasy standalone, so that's a big part of it there, is I don't think I'm the right audience for this, and I think this character reads a lot younger than I was anticipating. I actually can't find any information on how old she's supposed to be, but she reads a lot younger than I was expecting. But we're following Karis, who lives in this like ancient Greek-inspired world, and the country she lives in, Aratia, is controlled by something called the Scriptorium, which is this group of scholars who use the magic of this world called script work to do various things, to control various things. And she is stuck in the Scriptorium working with the groups that are trying to reawaken an automaton army that the country used to control before it was sabotaged by a guy called Master Theodos. Karis, however, doesn't want to be here. She wants nothing to do with the Scriptorium, because the Scriptorium actually took her away from her brother. He was taken away and shipped elsewhere when they were much younger. It's been 7 years, and she wants to try and escape and find her brother. In her attempts to escape, however, she manages to awaken an automaton and ends up getting kind of pulled into his dilemma, which is that he wants to figure out what happened to his father, Master Theodos, and like expose the lies of the Scriptorium. So there's kind of a lot happening here, and I think overall it's a very quick and easy read, and it was like really nice writing. I think the writing in here is very well done, but I was just finding every event in here to be very abrupt. It didn't feel like there was any kind of rising tension for anything. Even for moments that should have had really high stakes, it was just moving from action to action without any kind of suspense, and so I was finding that a little bit frustrating. There was also a character relationship that gets set up, and pretty much immediately it's like, oh, but this relationship is actually falling apart, and we're being told things more than we're being shown things. And so I think overall that kind of plotting was just not working for me. I was also finding Karis and Alex, the automatons, both be kind of waffly, and I think Dane as well, who is Karis's best friend, they all kind of strike me as being inconsistent, and maybe it's just that they're supposed to be teenagers, but again, I don't know how old any of them are supposed to be, so it's like maybe if these characters are supposed to be like 14, 15, maybe, but I don't get the sense that that's the age they're supposed to be. I think they're supposed to be older than that, and they just read a lot younger. So I'm just not sure what exactly to expect from any of these characters, and I just don't think they're working for me. I don't think the events of the story are working for me. It just feels all very abrupt. So I'm not really the intended audience, and I think I would be doing this book a disservice to keep reading it knowing that, and knowing that I'm not having a good time with it 60 pages in, and I would much rather pass this on to a reader who will hopefully pick it up and love it. I do think this book has some good things going for it. I think the world it's setting up is really interesting, the magic is really interesting, and I like that we get an asexual main character here as well. There's a bit kind of early on that is explaining that Karis is asexual, and so I think there's some good representation in here as well. I get the sense there might also be some other queer characters. So there's a lot of good stuff going in this book. It's just not working for me personally. So I'm going to pass it on to a reader who will love it. I'll donate this to my local bookstore and have that out of my library and hopefully in somebody else's hands. So now that I've DNF'd that, I got to figure out what I'm going to pick up next. And I'm kind of debating which thing I want to do next. Because it's Reindeer Readathon, I'm leaning towards Pretty Girls just so I can go ahead and start getting some points for my team. Also, this is one of the bigger books that I had planned to read this month, so getting this off my TBR early would be a big win for me. So I think I'll go Pretty Girls next, and we'll check in and see how we're doing once I got started with this. I don't anticipate DNFing this one at 60 pages in because I think I'd read about 100 pages of it the first time I picked it up very quickly as well. I remember this being a fast read and I was really enjoying it at that point. I genuinely don't remember why I put this book down, but I definitely need to start over because I don't remember any of what was happening. So I'll dive into this one next and check back with hopefully a non-DNF update for this one. So I think now is a good time to check in on Pretty Girls because I made it back to the point that I had previously read up to the first time I tried to read this book. And this is a lot further in than I thought I had gotten. I thought I was only like 100 to 150 pages in, but I'm actually like 220 pages in. So that's interesting. I did not remember I'd gotten that far in the book. But I am enjoying reading this again. I say enjoying kind of loosely though, because it is very dark and very gritty. There's a lot of violence that is happening on page. So just be aware of that if you decide to pick this one up. But this book follows Claire and Lydia, who are these two sisters who, when they were very young, or not very young, but like kind of early teenage years, their older sister Julia was in college and she went missing and was never seen again. And so that event altered their lives very profoundly. It kind of changed the dynamic of their family and they grew very close as a result of that. But then sometime later, I think when they were in college, an event happened between Claire and Lydia as a result of Claire's husband's, I almost said Scott, Paul. His name was Paul Scott, so that's what threw me there. But something happens with Paul and it drives Claire and Lydia apart, and now at the time that the book is taking place, they haven't spoken to each other in almost 20 years. So the start of this book kicks off when Paul ends up dying in a robbery, and Claire, kind of in the wake of his death and after his funeral and everything, starts to uncover some information about him that is very disturbing. She had trusted him, she'd known him for all these years and never had any reason to doubt him, and then she starts to find some things that he had hidden basically in plain sight because he knew she wouldn't look, and she starts to doubt that she understood her husband at all, and ends up reaching back out to Lydia for support in dealing with the situation because she's becoming very frightened, and she's realized pretty quickly that she can't trust the authority figures who should be investigating because they're all acting very creepy and weird in kind of various different ways. And so she's like kind of desperate for support during this situation, and she ends up reaching out to Lydia for support, and the two of them are now working together to try and solve the mystery of what was Paul up to, because there's kind of a lot of threads of things going on and they're trying to pull all those pieces together and figure out what was actually happening. And they're also trying to figure out like how are we gonna get out of the situation, because they both have had run-ins with the law previously, so there's that element of it. They're worried about like getting arrested again for various things that they're not involved in, and then they're also worried about like Lydia has a family and she is worried about bringing her daughter or her boyfriend into this because they're kind of, you know, separate from everything that's happening, and she doesn't want them to become implicated in anything that's going on. So I'm really enjoying the way that this book is exploring the relationship between Lydia and Claire, because that's really the center of the story. It's about their relationship. It's about Paul, really, but it's also about their relationship and the way that they're having to like get to know each other again after all these years, and the ways that they're able to fall back into familiar routines as well. Like, it's that difference between what they still understand about each other even after all this time, and the things that they're learning about each other after all this time. And I'm just enjoying the way that that relationship is unfolding, and all of the events that are pushing them together or kind of forcing them to reckon with that gap between them. So I'm really enjoying that part of it. I also really like Lydia's family. Her daughter Dee is about to go off to college, and her boyfriend Rick is a delight. I have this curse on me where anytime I like a character, they are marked for death. So I'm very stressed about Rick in this book because I really like him, and I'm really hoping that nothing bad happens to him. But given the whole vibe of the rest of the book, I'm a little afraid that something bad is going to happen to him, and I'm stressed about his ongoing well-being. But yeah, overall, despite it being like very, very dark, this is a very violent book with a lot of violence on page, particularly violence against women. It's dark, but I think it's an interesting and well-written exploration of its topics, so I'm still having a good time reading it. I think the overall reading experience is enjoyable because of the relationship aspect and because of the writing being good. It's hard to describe something like that because it's like I'm enjoying this book, and this book is full of horrible, horrible things, but I'm enjoying the way that it is exploring those ideas and dealing with the fallout of the events that are happening. Tomorrow I'm going to be taking a little break from this video though, because I'm going in for a like small outpatient medical procedure. I'm taking the day off work because the doctor said I'm probably not going to feel great for the rest of the day after that. So that'll happen. Shouldn't be a big deal, but I'm going to take a little break from this video tomorrow to do like a little languishing readathon. I'm gonna, or not readathon, but like a reading vlog. I'm just gonna see how much I can read in a day while I'm off work and not feeling like doing anything. So that's kind of my goal for that, and then after that we'll circle back around, and if I haven't finished Pretty Girls at that point, I will finish it then, and then we'll move on to the two that aren't on my Reindeer Readathon TBR. Well, I ended up scrapping the other vlog I was gonna work on. I just was not feeling like being on camera yesterday. I didn't feel great. I didn't feel awful, but I didn't feel great. So scrapped that. However, I have finished Pretty Girls, so this was a success. I ended up enjoying this quite a bit. This is very much about the relationship between Lydia and Claire, and I think that was what made me enjoy it. It is a little bit overly long. I think that there's some sections here where there's like interesting stuff that gets introduced in like the first 150 to 200 pages, and then it doesn't come up again until like the last 100 pages. So there's this long section in the middle where some plot points just kind of get dropped and not brought up again, and I really wanted to know more about those. There were also some characters I really like that got sidelined, and I was kind of bummed because I wanted to see more of them. So I had a few issues with it, but overall I thought this was a really enjoyable thriller. It is really dark and really gory, so just know that going in. There is, particularly in the last chunk, there is a lot of violence specifically to one of our characters, and it's fairly graphic. So yeah, it's a very dark book, so it feels weird to say that I enjoyed it, but I think it's a well-written thriller, and it definitely kept me on the edge of my seat. I really wanted to know what happened, and I would definitely pick up something else from Karen Slaughter. So I'm giving this 4 stars. I can't remember if I said that already or not, but yeah, overall this was a success. So now I just have 2 more self-destructing books left, The Salt Line and A Shadow All of Light, and I think I might start, The Salt Line next. Luckily that hit my glasses and not my face. I think I might start The Salt Line next because that of the 2 books I have left is the one I think I'm most likely to DNF. So if I'm going to DNF a book, I want to get that over with quickly. I am interested in this one. That's why I bought it. I kind of bought it on the recommendation of a bookseller at my local bookstore, and I do think it sounds really interesting, but I've discovered that there is a element in here that sets off my health anxiety really badly, and so I've had some struggles with getting through that enough to read it. I've tried to read this a couple of times before and never managed to get out of the first couple of chapters, so that's kind of happened, and I'm actually currently a little bit anxious right now, so I don't know how well this is going to mesh with my current frame of mind, so we'll kind of see. Also, this is a dystopian, and I usually am pretty picky about dystopians. I don't really like them most of the time, so that's another kind of count against it. But yeah, I want to go ahead and give it a try anyway. I was interested in the premise of this. Is about a bunch of people who, like, basically they're adrenaline junkies in a version of the future where there's this thing called the Salt Line that protects what's left of civilization, and on the outside of that there is killer ticks that spread a disease that kill you kills you very quickly. So thus the health anxiety problems. But it's following some adrenaline junkies who go outside of the salt line on this like adventure tour thing, and then I think get like captured for ransom or something. So it sounds pretty interesting, and I am curious about like the themes it's going to explore, because it's about like what are these people willing to do to get back inside the salt line. But it does have a few things that I think might make me likely to DNF it. So that's where we're gonna go next, and I'm not gonna start it tonight because it's fairly late and I'm pretty tired, so I think I'm gonna try and get some rest instead. I have a lot of stuff I need to get done at work tomorrow, but tomorrow is Friday, so I will have plenty of time to read tomorrow evening, and then over the weekend I'm gonna try and, if I can, polish off both of these if I can. Although every time I go, yeah, this time frame I'm gonna finish those books, it never happens. So we'll see what actually happens, but for now I'm gonna go get some rest, and I'll check back in when I've started the salt line. As predicted, I will be DNFing the salt line. I'm just not having a great time with this. I did get past the tics part, and the health anxiety didn't get to me too bad, but I just am finding that I don't really care for the rest of the book now. All of the characters have kind of overwrought backstories, and it feels like there's a lot of stuff happening with a dystopia, but none of it seems to be connected to the plot or being explained in any way. It's all really vague feeling and kind of disconnected, so this is not working for me, and I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on to another reader who will hopefully love it. So I'll give that to my local bookstore as usual. Actually, that's why I bought it too, so it's just, you know, coming full circle. So now that I've DNF'd that, we can move on to our final book for this video, A Shadow of Light, which I think this one will work for me. I remember reading the first couple of chapters and really liking them, so I am excited to be diving back into this one. I'm having kind of a rough start with this one. I am currently 5 pages in, and I'm finding the language to be very kind of overwrought, which is, I think, becoming the word for this second half of this video. It's very, like, overly elevated, if that makes sense. It feels like it's aiming for Shakespearean, but not really hitting Shakespearean. I think because it doesn't have the rhythm that makes Shakespeare kind of work. So yeah, I'm having kind of a hard time with this. I'm 5 pages in, I'm finding the voice a little bit annoying to read, and we'll see where we go from here. I'm not gonna DNF it at 5 pages. I do feel like I wanna give it more of a try than that, especially since it's been on my shelf for so long. It's written by a local author. Like, I need to give it a stronger attempt. And then I'll DNF it later if I'm still not having a good time. But yeah, the language is just not vibing with me, I think, is the problem. There's a lot of, like, I'll read you this paragraph I just read to give you a sense. Setup here is that the main character and his teacher, he is learning to be a shadow thief, have gone to visit somebody. And as they're being led in to visit that person, one of the guy's, like, henchmen is putting a blade between the main character's shoulders. And in such circumstances, the apprehensive body allows no rational thought. I dropped to the floor while snatching my dagger from my small boot, curled like an ingratiating cat around the feet of the large fellow, and clipped into his heel tendon above his pretty yellow shoe. He howled in a tone surprisingly high-pitched for one so hirsute about the chops, dropped his cutlass, and staggered against the wall. I sprang to my feet and swept out my sword, ready to defend myself and Astolfo. I assumed that we had been led into a trap. Astolfo's wealth was fabled, and attempts upon it, and upon his life, were not infrequent. With a gesture, he calmed me. "Histau," he said. "What are you doing?" I don't know. Maybe it sounds fine to you, but I'm finding it kind of grating to read. Also, I'm a little bit dubious about the fact that there is a mute character whose name is Mutano. I don't know how I feel about that. I think it's supposed to be kind of like Venetian inspired. At least a lot of the names are kind of giving me that feeling of kind of like medieval, it's Italy, maybe. That's kind of the feeling of it, but also I don't know anything about the world yet. We know that he's in a port city called Tardaco, I think, and that's it. It is a port city. That is the full information we have about it at this point. So yeah, it's a little sparse on world building at this point, and the language is Again, I'm only 5 pages in though, so I'm not gonna give up here. I will give it until at least page 50. I think I'll read up to that point. I think there'll be about 2 chapters, and we'll see how I'm feeling at that point, if the plot has kind of pulled me in, or if the writing has grown on me, because I have had that happen, where I've read something where I wasn't loving the writing, but then it kind of grew on me over time. So, very much possible, but at this point I'm a little like, feels a little bit overly elevated. Anyway, I just had to check in because that was kind of bothering me, especially since I had said in the previous clip that I was pretty excited to pick this one up and I thought it was going to be more likely I would enjoy it. So yeah, just wanted to give you an update and let you know that's where we're at. I also have to show you something delightful that my friend sent me for Christmas. Oh, I just threw a bunch of napkins on the floor, whoops. She sent me a bunger from Bug Snacks, and I love him immensely. He's sitting on my desk kind of behind my monitor so he can look out at me. He has got like, his legs are rigid so he actually can stand, and I really like that. So I have him set up like on my desk. He's delightful. I love him, and I have to share him with you. Also, I'm replaying Bug Snacks because of this, because I love Bug Snacks. It's genuinely one of my favorite games, and I haven't played it in a while. I played it, I think, back in the spring to use for a specific purpose for a class that I was it in the spring or was it last fall? There was some specific purpose. Oh, in the spring I was writing a paper and I involved some stuff with video games and I talked about Bug Snacks in it. That's what it was. So I have played it kind of semi-recently, but not in the last month. So of course I have to play it again. That's the other thing I'm up to at the moment. But yeah, I'm gonna go try a little more of a Shadow Olive Light and we'll see how I'm feeling about it when I get to about 50 pages in. And hopefully I'll have a sense of whether I want to keep going or not. In an unexpected turn of events, I am DNFing this. I did not get 50 pages in. I did get to the end of chapter 1, and I've realized that this seems to be set up as a series of small vignettes of Falco's time becoming a shadow thief, and I don't think that that first chapter gives me any good reason to care. I think the only thing that would carry you through this is if you're particularly interested in like the shadow thief aspect or in Falco himself, and I don't find Falco to be a very interesting or enjoyable character, and all of the writing, the descriptions, the dialogue, everything is just really overly elevated and overwrought in a way that I find very distracting. It's not immersive, it's just kind of making it harder for me to get through the book. So I'm not enjoying the writing. I don't particularly care about Falco. And then kind of the last straw for me is that we finally get a female character who gets introduced kind of at the end of chapter 1, and the way she's described is basically that she is small-breasted but not mannish at all, and then says that basically a lot of her successes come from the fact that she's attractive and that her like motive for doing the things that she's doing, because she's kind of like the antagonist for this first chapter, the things that she's doing are because she's mad that her partner cheated on her. She has like a shadow thieving partner and he cheated on her, he slept with somebody, and she's mad about that. And so she's gone through this like kind of incomprehensible plan to punish him, but also involves like a whole bunch of other people. And it just didn't really make a lot of sense to me. I didn't really care for it, and I'm just not really enjoying my time reading this. So it's not for me. I don't think this is a bad book, and I suspect there are a lot of people who would really enjoy this, who would like this style of writing, but I just know it is not at all for me personally, and I'm not going to waste additional time trying to get through it. So that's that, and that is the final book on my self-destructing books list for the year. So I have officially completed that entire list. I have read, DNF'd, or outright unhauled every single book I put on that list at the start of the year, or at the end of last year, I guess maybe is when I made that list. And I'm really pleased. I'm so glad that this worked out, that I made all of that progress on that list, and it's definitely something I want to carry over to next year. I found this to be the most useful and motivating list I've ever created, so I'll definitely be creating another self-destructing books list for 2025. I just need to think about which books are going to go on it for next year, because I am trying to clear a lot of stuff out quickly, because I know I'm going to be moving sometime in the nearest future. I know I say that a lot in a lot of videos. We don't have like a set date at this point, but we're kind of keeping an eye out for when an apartment opens at the complex we're looking at. So it's kind of where we're at, and I know I'm going to need to be able to pack and get my stuff ready to go very quickly. So I'm trying to think through, like, what do I want to hold on to, what's still worth giving a try, versus what should I just, like, accept I'm never going to read. But this was just a really successful effort for me of making this list and sticking to it and finishing everything on it. I'm really glad I took the time to do this, and yeah. This was fun, even though it was ultimately a lot of DNFs in one vlog. I usually try not to DNF everything in a vlog, but in this case it was kind of, you know, par for the course, I guess, for my self-destructing books list. It was just one of the things that could potentially happen, and that's why they're on the list. So yeah, I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, I hope you'll consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.